Welcome back. You're watching Daybreak, and thank you for staying with us. The hashtag on X is Daybreak. The SMS code is 22422 at Citizen TV Kenya and at Ayub Abdikadir. We are discussing the National Youth Council Strategic Plan 2023-24 and 2027-28 over the course of the respective financial years that I've mentioned, as to the engagement of young people, amplifying their voices, getting them included in terms of participating or taking part in political decision-making processes, their empowerment, inclusion, and being the pathway for the advocacy of them being an informed and a transformed and safe youth here in Kenya. Kidi Mwaga joins my panel that was here before the break, and he's the convener of the Interparties Youth Forum and a lawyer by profession. Wakili, good morning.
Good morning.
Lovely to have you. We started with the role of Parliament as to whether it redeemed itself yesterday in looking at a very pertinent matter, food security aspect, one of the pet projects of the president that he has very much talked about in high esteem. Its implementation and bringing now the cost of living, saying we need to cut on our imports in terms of food, we need to empower our farmers in terms of the fertilizer provision. And yesterday, the axe falling on the Agriculture CS Mithika is subject to what the Select Committee of the House will bring forth in under 9 days' time. Yes. But given that and the role of Parliament generally in our democracy, young people on this strategic plan, yes, is from the young people's perspective, what then has hampered in the past, if you look at the conduct of Parliament, to look at critical matters as they did yesterday? For example, in 2018, the sugar matter and how they had acrimoniously debated that, the 2014 security amendments laws that looked into how we could protect ourselves and how Parliament debated that very critical matter, and other bills that had elicited a lot of reactions, including how members of Parliament were largely shepherded by the executive, how decisions as to how the executive ones are passed in Parliament. Yeah. But how was yesterday's proceeding and generally Parliament's conduct from the Interparties convener point of view?
Thank you, Ayub. Yesterday's proceedings in Parliament and the determination of Parliament to set up a select committee to look into the conduct of the Cabinet Secretary for Agriculture is the clearest indication that to them whom much has been given, much is expected. Because the investment that we have put on as a country in the area of food production has been immense, and the results has been nothing but, promising and encouraging. Mm-hmm. The fact that today, as we speak in this country, that hunger is not part of our politics, is a very good indicator. But then you realize that all that work that has been done by this administration is almost going up in smoke, in my view, because of either failure to keep tabs on what is happening within your ministry, or sheer personal greed. That we are here, that that our security agencies, together with the media, our Kenyan media, have told us that there were instances where what was given to farmers was nothing anywhere close to being fertilizer. I think it is incumbent upon the Cabinet Secretary to take personal responsibility and the political responsibility. And because to this extent he has not taken that, he has not expressed remorse. I watched his last interview here with, I think it was Waihiga. What's the name of the gentleman, the journalist?
My colleague Sam.
Yes, with Sam Gituku, yes. Yeah. And whatever the Cabinet Secretary was saying was less than convincing. I think that the Parliament should proceed and make sure that he is held accountable for his failure to make sure that such a thing does not happen under his docket.
Okay.
And so for all intent and purposes, I think that Parliament sent very right indicators.
Okay.
And I think it also underscored what President Ruto would do to people who play with the lives of Kenyans. Because ordinarily, if there was any intervention by the executive, you would have been told. But there has been no intervention at all. And so the fact that the executive has led Parliament to deal with this Cabinet Secretary as they deem fit is, again, a very good indicator. Thank you.
All right. Should that be the template for, or the treatment, the threshold, the benchmark for other state officials as well, who either fail to work as per their contract with the Kenyan people? Of course, they are appointees of the executive, but indirectly serve the Kenyan people.
Yes.
Should that be also the threshold and the benchmark to treat also other state officials?
I think that what the proceedings of Parliament give us now is a very happy place. Happy place because you remember that one of the accusations that have festered I think for the last 1 decade now, that there have been an overbearance of the executive on the part of the legislature. I think that now, going forward, that when people are found culpable, that when doubts are raised on someone's competence, on someone's willingness to get the work done, on someone's part to be part of the solution instead of being part of the problem, I think that our parliament, our legislative assembly, must be given a chance to be able to call these people, interrogate their conduct, and figure out if they need to be in office or otherwise. Thank you.
Okay, and in regards to the strategic plan that we have talked about, in that context, of course, as the convener of the Interparties Youth Forum,
yes,
this is a very critical forum, and I'm sure you're watching all these events, and Angel does, Ivy does, Mohammed does, Brenda does, and Kiprotich does.
Yes.
And at times it's very concerning how the political establishment does behave when it comes to their language, when it comes to their demeanor, when it comes to how they perceive the Kenyan people.
Yes.
But here you are, a representation of young population that is tech-savvy, informed, educated. What then hampers you, young folks, to coalesce around a cause when it comes to the voting days or the electoral cycle and give a message, for example, of what came out of Senegal, in the sense that you can put your own at State House, and you can literally drive this country to the direction that it's required without necessarily depending on the political establishment who have largely been within the operation for many years since multipartyism, say 30 years now?
I think the first problem goes to what we call cultural orientation. The political culture in this country for quite some time now, Ayub, has been less than glamorous in regards to young people. Because for a long time, many political parties have deployed young people as nothing but tools of political violence and intimidation. And so that you realize that this has constantly denied young people the chance to build and develop their capacities to be able to take charge, responsibility as people who are in charge of their destinies. And so, but work has been done to try to change that narrative. From when Interparties Youth Forum was first set up in 2009, to when the National Youth Council was set up, to the progress that has been made over the last 1 decade to try to reorient the political culture in this country. Today that we are here and speaking about the strategic plan of the National Youth Council, that entities like Interparties Youth Forum are intimate contributors in that process, that I think it is a positive indicator that finally young people of this country can take charge of this process and become part of the solution of this country. And that never again should the political class divide young people of this country on the basis of ethnicity or any other nefarious considerations.
Mohammed, is that then so? Is that the direction? And do you think the constant cry by young people can end through such strategic plans and planning that can be done by the young people of this country to shepherd themselves to the direction of political inclusion, making use of the numbers that they have? And the mathematics are heading in the sense that the next voters register largely will be dominated, as has been the case in 2022, by young Kenyans by a far majority. How can that be optimized by the youth of this country?
Thank you. So one, I would think it will be a lot of political naivety to assume that just the numbers would translate to a victory in the elections. It takes, I think, a lot more than just the numbers to win the election. It takes a lot of resources. It takes a lot of political inclusion in those capacities. It takes a lot of campaign money. It takes a lot of crisscrossing this country to win an election. However, the numbers have a say. The numbers can contribute to something. Will that numbers translate into an election victory in 2027 or even in 2032? I highly doubt it. But can they be part of a victory? I think we can clearly be part of a victory, regardless of who that victory comes from. The other thing, Ayub, is that it is very good for politicians and those who hold political office to politically capture youth discussions and youth initiatives, because it serves a greater purpose for them to claim to be part of advancing a youth agenda and all of those things. And the only way to break apart is to, of course, run a campaign that similar to maybe what was run by Senegal, to stand up for what is right and to stand up for extension of term limits, to coalesce against a mission that is so critical to the people. And I think if youth can be seen to be leading that initiative, I think we'll have a victory. There are a lot of similar things which are happening. I think the Doctors' Union is led by largely youthful people, and they have held against the government for the better part of the last 50 days, and they should not give up until those promises within the 2017 CBA are met. So I think if we can coalesce against, if we can coalesce around such initiatives, which are very key to the people, I think our numbers can then translate into political victory.
Ivy, when you look at the progress of, you have given us an assessment of since 2009, where we are until now. In terms of A, are we still on the runaway? B, have we taken off? C, are we mid-air, but have we attained the political, social, and economic altitude to stabilize that young people's plan? So where are we in terms of the three concepts that I've given?
All right, that's a tricky one, but let me do what I can. So where we are right now as a young people, first of all, I'm very proud to just say we're in an era of the technological enhancements where anything is possible. You can create your own AI. You can create your own virtual reality, something that I never thought in my life that could come. But that's where we are. So as the young people, that's the trajectory we are taking. That's the first thing that we need to know, is that we're in a period and an era where we can create our own realities, and that with regards to governance and with regards to where young people want to be, it's the right trajectory. But now where our predecessors, our leaders, our government leaders, and together with the bodies that govern all of us, are we all of us together? That now should be the question. That should be the question that you should be asking me. Are we all of us together? Are we all of us in sync with regards to our agenda? And I believe that I'm seeing a great trajectory from the National Youth Council doing its strategic plan, from the Ministry of Environment still doing its strategic plan, from even the parties doing their strategic plan to ensure that there are parties that are actually coming together to ensure that the young people are driving the right agenda. So for me, I believe that we are heading towards the right direction, the right trajectory, but I believe there's much more that can be done. There's much more with regards to the timing, there's much more opportunities, there's much more things that we can continue to show. Like, for example, in the National Youth Strategy, we are talking about, they are saying that one of the problems is regards to staffing. Yeah. And I was asking myself, we're in a digital era, why should staffing be an issue? We should be able to help them. We should be able to outsource this staffing. We should be able to go to the ward level or even towards the county level and tell the counties to give the young people opportunities. Maybe we can outsource young people who are able to do digital creation. Maybe we can outsource people who are able to do digital graphics. So it doesn't, and they can work from home. So it doesn't necessarily need to actually be in the headquarters. They can actually be doing work remotely, because that's where we are going into. We're going into a world where AI has taken over. And I believe that if we can be able to incorporate all these kind of things, then young people will be able to be given jobs even through the National Youth Council, but with a different kind of system, a different kind of an ontology. And it's going to be able to enhance now the way we are thinking, enhance the vision, enhance the creativity, and it even lessen the burden and with regards to the budget, because that's where we are heading. So we need to give out solutions that are able to enhance where we are heading to as a country and as a community.
Mm-hmm. Okay, Angel, then, is there a possibility? I mean, here talking about the supplementary aspects. The president had a charter with the youth at the Nyayo National Stadium before the campaigns. So did Raila Odinga. That tells you the importance of the Kenyan youth and the African youth and the global youth. How can that be then further supplemented by job creation? That is in terms of tapping on the available technological platforms that are I mean, paying off young Kenyans in many aspects. And then second, therefore, ending dependency in the aspect of now looking at where the politicians are and then empowering yourself, while at the same time you're also working with a strategic plan that is meant to drive you to the path of self-sustainability and empowerment.
Ayub, first of all, I'd like to say that on the question of taking off or mid-air, I think as the National Youth Council in Kenya, we have the infrastructure. We have the institution that is established, is autonomous, and it is protected by the Constitution of Kenya. And then again, we can, even if I compare it to a country like Tanzania, Tanzania does not have a National Youth Council instituted. The young people of Tanzania are still agitating for that. So we are not where they are. We have the infrastructure, we have the hardware of the institutions of the National Youth Council. What we need now is the software. I saw the ministry, we had the Africa Youth Connect that was initiated by the National Youth Council and the Ministry of Youth that took place in December. And there are a lot of commitments and promises that were made by the Kenyan government and even by our neighbors to continue supporting the initiatives of the youth across the continent. But then what I'm seeing more is that within the structures of the National Youth Council, there is that political agitation that we are working with young people, but in reality, it does not reflect that. The National Youth Council has a budget of about 98 million. And recently, the president issued a directive. The Ministry of Public Service issued a directive saying that there will be budget cuts in the next financial year of about 30%. So that means the National Youth Council will be getting an allocation of about 68 million. 68 million only caters for administrative costs that are exclusive of the programs that are yet to be implemented through the strategic plan. So there's a huge deficit. And when we talk about having young people live and working from home, that's a great initiative. But then what you see with the National Youth Council, being that it is within the government, the Public Service Commission is the one to recommend to you the people that you will work with. So it's not your role entirely to outsource the kind of manpower that you want in your institution. So even the bureaucracy in government is still muzzling the National Youth Council. But those are very small issues that can be sorted out. These are very policy and goodwill issues. If the government or if the president can really be meaningful about transforming the youth space, he can do that very easily. But I do not see him taking keen or paying attention to the National Youth Council or to the youth issues within his government. I think he's making political proclamations which are roadside and are not really reflecting what the National Youth Council is really presenting to the government of Kenya. There's so much that can be done in terms, even when we talk about having digital centers across the country, free Wi-Fi's and all that, the National Youth Council has the structures to enable that to happen. But if it is left out in that kind of decision-making process, then we see what we have now. We do not have those centers anywhere. They're not working. Either the young people are not making use of them or they do not have any knowledge of them. But the National Youth Council is being underutilized by the government of Kenya.
Okay. And Brenda, is that the case then? I mean, when you talk about commitments that are made by politicians during the campaigns and the actual reality of when it comes to implementation, there's the tendency of the Kenyan political class ending up, in most aspects, feeding from the same trough. I mean, would it be better if, say, the other party was in government, and how can the existing pledge that was made to the youth by the head of state be actualized wholly? Because this is an important constituent going forward.
Thank you, Ayub. Unfortunately, our political campaigns are always based on what's selling, what would gain us more votes, what would ensure that, like, which constituency are we going to appeal to most just to get there. But you realize that part of the issues that the youths are facing is the youth sector is largely uncoordinated. So if that can be dealt with, so that even as we talk about youth issues, it is protected by law. There's some form of order in it, because we are not going to be able to address matters or issues affecting the youth in this country without that coordination. That's why I mentioned about having proper data collected on matters that are affecting the youth, because we cannot just be making proclamations about we are launching this, we are going to allocate this. So in as much as you want to allocate, under what umbrella are you going to allocate this? How do you ensure that all the youths are covered under this? Because the issue, again, that we have been facing, apart from just the uncoordination, is you want the youth to be active. You want the youth to take up their spaces in the political space. It is expensive. We have had AGPO. been there since the constitution was the new constitution. But is it effective? We now have the Hustler Fund largely being taken up by the youth. Is it coordinated in a way that we are able to see the results from it? So those are the issues that I think the presidency should address, and basically just empowering these youth to make sure that even as they increase their participation in the political spaces and social spaces, they do it in a way that is very strategic, that they become very intentional with it, that we see results, the youth start benefiting from it. Then we will say that even with the launch of this strategic plan, it is a success. Because without that success, then we do not, this will just be another program, this will just be another project that was started and failed, without making sure that as we have ACPO, as we have Hustler Fund, as we have the micro loans being advanced to the youths and all that, it is done in a very strategic manner, it's done in a very orderly manner to just ensure that the right things are being done, the right policies are being passed. If there need be, the laws that we have are being implemented to the letter to cover this large population. Yep.
Okay. Yes, Ngatish.
Okay, thank you very much, Ayub. I think for me, in my view, I would like to look at the challenges facing political inclusion young people in historical perspective. One, for a very long time, young people voices have been very fragmented. Yes. And that has made the political elite to take advantage of it to the detriment of young people. Yes. We don't have our space at the decision-making table. And I think it is now high time for young people to up their game, to take advantage of their demographic dividend, which we mentioned they are the majority in terms of population, to correct this kind of mess. One, it happens under platforms such as Interparty Youth Forum that was brought together by Kidi Mwaga, that brings together young people across various political parties to join together for champion a cause of young people. To clear my interest, I'm part of that IPYF, and I'm at SG. Number two, for a very long time, policymakers have paid lip service to the interest of young people. That even explains today, as we are speaking, Ayub, we don't have NYC in place. It is not by accident, but it is by design, because most of the top political elite fear strong political grouping of young people. Because if young people unite behind a cause, because of our demographic dividend, we can easily dislodge them from the space. But there is hope inside, especially through the launch of this strategic plan. I believe under the leadership of Ababu Namwamba, because Ababu Namwamba, when NYC Act was formulated in 2009, Ababu Namwamba was the Minister of Youth, and he's back now at the same seat. And I believe now he'll take up from where he left last time, and then we have National Youth Council in place. The president is committed on issues around young people, and like what my colleague Mbuthia is trying to allege. One, issues around, there is a project called Talanta Hela Initiative that recognizes innovation of young people. You recognize the talent. So we want your talent to pay you as a young person. We have issues of what has become commonly known as Taptenkelei, online jobs. That is creating now around 160,000 jobs for young people in this country. Now we have Hustler Fund. Ayub, I think maybe Angela has not gotten an opportunity to benefit. But for me, I have taken loan from Hustler Fund.
Did you?
And yes, and it is working, my brother. So it's not something that is out of plus. Youth Enterprise Development Fund is now revamped under the chair lady of Fatuma Barayan. If you've seen doing sensitization across the country, it is now very easy for young people across this country to access youth fund. So I like to urge young people across the country to not sleep at homes. Take advantage of the opportunities, be on the lookout, read widely, and then you'll be able to benefit. Otherwise, I believe under the leadership of Ababu and the Ministry of Youth, young people, there's a change for the better.
Kidi, Ngatich mentions the fear held by the political elite when you young folks convene around the Interparty Youth Forum.
Yes.
That seems to be a reality. How do you overcome such a momentous challenge from a well-financed political establishment, economically oiled, against or vis-a-vis or versus you young Kenyans?
Thank you, Ayub. One thing that we have realized, particularly for us young people who have decided that we will not stand apart and will not do anything about the governance of our country, we have witnessed when instances where there have been attempted interference with the running of youth-led organizations like Interparties Youth Forum. And long before you settle in office, people high up the political food chain are willing to sponsor other people to get you out of the office long before you settle, long before you can implement anything. Mm-hmm. And so as young people, we have learned that good intentions is not enough, that we must also be skillful enough to be able to navigate those machinations that may want to undermine the voices and the good intentions of the young people. So one, you must make sure that the people you work with, that you constantly keep everyone involved, so that at any one time, people know where you are coming from and where you are headed. To make people understand the larger vision that the team is working on. That way, even when other people are then, recruited into undermining the work that the organization could be doing, mm-hmm. then we have got enough people within the organization that are able to tell them off and remind them that we come together because of certain higher ideals and not because of, selfish self-preservation that the political class have perpetuated over time. And I would gladly report that when we have young people like my brother Ngetich here, when we have young people like my sister Angel, people I've had the privilege of working with very closely, mm-hmm. I have seen that I would report that Kenya has got young people that are informed, that are well-meaning, and that are not naive. A lot of times, well-meaning can also be misconstrued to mean naive. But these young people, are, in their well-meaningness, are able to tell what is in their best interest. And therefore, acting in that enlightened self-interest, they want us to come together as young people and build a more stable polity. Thank you.
Yes, Angel, you have a point before you go to Ivan Mohammed.
No, it's okay. I can just add on to that and to say that young people have been really pushing for a lot of inclusion in their sphere of influence. And one thing that also irks me a lot is when we look at the University Amendment Bill that really muzzled student leaders across the country. It is very sad to see that there is every legal and policy and political opportunity to muzzle the voices of the youth. Now that we do not have students even speaking on food insecurity issues, we don't have students agitating for better, even the doctor strike should just be led by students. These are things that students have done over the years across the continent. Mm. Students have been the helm of revolutions in African countries. And if we muzzle the voices of students, then we have killed an entire generation. Mm. Students are the cream of our society. And if they do not have a space to speak on their intellect and their vision of their own country, then we are a country that is doomed to fail. Ayub. Okay.
Coming to you, Mohammed, and this is related to the feedback from the viewers. And an interesting question here from some of our viewers, and I'll be getting to them shortly. Talks about the aspect of making this plan about youth-centric, that it should be charged by the energy of young Kenyans. How then can this process be made bulletproof from exogenous overreach by other interested parties who might be hell-bent on delaying the progress made by young Kenyans?
Interesting. So I think it will largely depend on how united we are as the young people, or how desperate we are as the young people to achieve the goals that we aspire to achieve. Are we desperate enough? Are we facing these challenges well enough that we could move around these goals? I think we're desperate in terms of political inclusion. We want to be politically included. We want to have seats at the tables where decisions are made. We want to contribute to those discussions which determine our current status and our future status. We think we're politically desperate and we want to be in those positions. Are we economically desperate well enough to move around together? I think we are. Yes, there are a lot of initiatives of how to create jobs and how to ensure that young people are economically involved in the economy. But there are also a lot more problems. Previously, it took about 7 different licenses to operate a business in Nairobi. So the same is the problem. There is a lot of a shortage in funding for those who want to seek funds from banks and from government agencies and all of those things. So I think those are things which are very key to our people. As my colleagues also mentioned, there's a lot of the university funding model has just been changed randomly or drastically, that is to say. Now, a lot of young people will be left out of universities and the ability to pursue higher education, especially those from lesser economically able background. So I think the problems are enough, or our desperations are enough. Now to the question of the unity.
Yes.
I'll start off with, one, can it be done? I think it is a strong evidence across the globe that young people can do change. They were part of those who got out former President Trump out of office in the 2020 American elections when they got together. I think today they are a part of change in America by setting up encampments in university grounds and ensuring that they contribute their voices towards those they feel are being subjugated in Gaza and in across of other regions. I think they were part of a movement in Senegal in ensuring that Sonko and the current president came into office. So I think there's strong evidence to show that when young people come together, there's a lot of good that can be done. That was also very evident in the 2022 elections, because it was really centered on hustlers and this idea and appeal to the young people that we will create an economy that works for you. We will create a country that works for you. So I think there is strong evidence to show that when we come together, we could get a lot of things together. So to answer your question in conclusion, is for us to move around, have an agreement on what are the issues that we want to pursue. And if we're in agreement, I think ideally we are all in agreement that my problem is Girit's problem, it's Angel's problem, it's everybody's problem. Now it's just how to move that agenda forward in a united front.
And Ivy, I mean, are they then are the young people the catalyst for change? I mean, in our Kenyan context, when you look at the aspects of education, he mentioned the university funding problem now affecting many people who are from not able background households, and the question of basically making decisions at the ballot that are informative in the aspect of making change across the landscape in terms of our economic progression and social as well. And when do you think that can be attained, given that we have talked about the numbers aspect, we've talked about the strategic plan aspect, but when is time, according to you, ripe for those changes to be effected?
All right. Thank you so much. We always say save the best for last.
Yeah.
But I believe that with my sentiments, this is what I have to say, is that young people are the catalysts of change. We are the now. We are the generation now, the generation X, the generations to come. We are the people that you can see that the whole world is depending on. And I'm very proud to say that it's now that, you know, institutions and governing bodies are now putting young people on the table. We have just recently, my sister here just was part of the consultative meeting happening in UNECA in the African Union, and they are trying to subject it towards the aspect of the future for the summit, where the future is heading, where we are going as a nation, where we are going as a world, as a continent. And I believe that these are the conversations that young people now need to be in rooms negotiating for, because we're not negotiating for our predecessors, we're negotiating for these ones who are behind us, the generations that are coming before us. So if we don't instigate or we don't be the barriers for them, then these ones who are coming behind us are really going to have the toughest times. We need to start categorizing and profiling young people according to different categories, with the young people who are in school, who are not in school, the young people who are educated, who are not educated. So that's how we'll be able to fragment them, create a dashboard system. As my sister said, she was talking about creating a system that works. We already have the National Youth Council. Why not use the National Youth Council body to create that system that can give every young person the need to be met through that body. It's already an existing body, but that body needs to be fed. And that feeding of that body needs the young people to just hold on to that body and to say, this is what we're going to do. We're going to hold the university students, we're going to hold the researchers, we're going to hold the development partners, and we're going to say, this is our body, and we want to institutionalize our body and to make sure that it's strong enough to fight for our rights. And I feel like this strategic plan is actually heading towards where we're supposed to go. And I believe that, you know, if the National Youth Council can give someone like me who is an attestament, I was part of a delegation that was able to go to Japan.
Okay.
It gave me that opportunity, and I went on my own capacity as an individual. So I believe there are also other young people who would like such kind of experiences. So we already have a body, so why not just puncture all the resources that we need to be able just to make sure that this body can govern us and our future generations.
Okay, and this is coming to you to just mention this small statistics and data from the Media Intelligence Research, Data Analysis and Visualization, or DIPO, that is development. They sampled about 1,300 young Kenyans from diverse backgrounds, and important to note is their perception of how they want to progress in life, the aspect of whether they believe in the rule of law, and this is a response on employment and self-determination, yes, which is a very strong driver for this generation, according to that findings. 22% of the respondents say they want to go into business for themselves, and that is the largest. When you look at office jobs, it's now 10%, meaning young people are now less focused on white-collar jobs. The aspect of being an engineer, 9%, doctor, 12%, lawyer, 8%, TikTok or influencer, social media, 12%, Boda Boda rider 1%, Uber driver 1%, none, I don't want to, nil or 0%, online writer 4%. And coming to you, Ngetich, and I'm sure you come from one of the food basket counties of this country, it seems there is an overwhelming focus on self-development and self-actualization. And this was one of the messages that President Obama left with the Kenyan youth when he came here in 2015. He said, look, focus less on white-collar jobs. Empower yourselves. Create the startups. Look for proper licenses and be the job creators by yourselves. How key is this then in terms of even the political aspirations? Because when the pocket is well, then the political aspirations become well, and money largely funds the political activities in our political context here in Kenya.
The statistics you have just given is not surprising. One, during Labor Day, when you listen to the president's speech, he spoke about 1 million people, being 1 million people coming to the job market a year. And in a year, our economy is able to generate only 200,000 jobs. So it is now incumbent upon us to be innovative in terms of how can we make a living.
Yeah.
That is why now people you can see 22% of those samples saying they want to go into business. And one thing in business, people make more money than when they are in employment. So, and I think when discussing now issues around young people, around that statistics, if young people can be given opportunity to access capital, to do their ventures or to fund their innovation, they can make more money and become now economically stable. And now, coming to the area we were talking about now, inclusion of young people in political space. They normally say economic power normally translates to political power. Mm-hmm. So if young people can be empowered in terms of to go into business, in terms of funding the innovation, I believe now it will go a long way in helping getting representation that has been looking forward to for very many years. It's also, I would like also to challenge young people perspective. As a young person myself, we cannot expect change without us being part of that advocacy for that change. That is why Thomas Sankara said you cannot carry out fundamental change without a certain degree of madness. I think it is high time for young people in this country to be very mad. Things may not be rosy, and you need to wake up and advocate, fight for your space. I think we'll be there. There is hope at the end of the channel.
Yes, Brenda.
I'm just still looking at the statistics, and it's saddening that just 3% of us, so 3% of the Gen Zs want to be farmers. but you're talking about being self-reliant and especially in terms of food security and all that, but we only have 3%. The rest of us just want to be TikTok influencers, and it looks like it's the most attractive thing for us now. Which again now brings the point that I wanted to talk to on, in as much as we're talking about the youth and the political space and all that, what is currently lacking also is mentorship, because we have this large population, but does it end there? Are all of us aware of what it takes to be on that table, what it takes to be considered a decision maker? Because without proper mentorship in what we want to do, then our influence will not be there. We'll continue being used as a voting chip, as a block. So whoever manipulates us best is able to take that youth constituency. There's the issue of, in as much as we're not just talking of mentorship in the political space only, there's mentorship in the business world. There's opening up spaces for dialogue so that the youth voices can continuously be heard. Let us be the people who talk about what our challenges are, not people imagining what challenges the youth may be facing in this country and starting to create solutions for what they do not understand. So now that people want to work online, what does it take for the youth voices to be heard? What does it take to strengthen that online space? That this majority that wants to work online, this majority that want to be self-employed are catered for, are supported in ways that actually make sense to them. The aspect of civic education. You would find that you have a very large population of the youths, but do they know that they're supposed to vote when it comes to the election time? Do they know that they're not supposed to be swayed by maybe the political party wave or whoever oils their hands? Because politics in this country has become very expensive, and to the detriment of the youths who have not amassed enough resources to enable them be on that table. So if such structures can be put in place or such issues can be addressed, then we will be dealing with the youth issues in a way that is more organized.
Okay, Kidi, coming to you, and it's still on the same findings, and this is very worrying now. A large percent of the Gen Zs don't see a future in this country. 10% want to be in another country in East Africa, 12% in another part of Africa, 39% the United States, 31% Europe, Asia 9%, Australia 17%. This is a concern, is it? And who then needs to communicate the message and convey that to that effect of the need in terms of thinking and mindset? Should it come from the policy players whom you have cried for a very long time that they have sidelined young voices, or this ought to be coming from from the young people themselves? I mean, to see a future in their country and work on agriculture, work on what I've talked about in terms of creating their own startups, looking for the opportunities, and be patriotic Kenyans as well, because this is very, very worrying.
Thank you very much, Ayub. One, we must remember that in the last 1 decade, because of the social media proliferation or how internet has gotten into our communities, young Kenyans, young people are able to see what other young people across the globe could be having for themselves. And this can make them imagine, of course, the usual adage goes that the grass is green on the other side. So they imagine that in those other polities, young people are having possibly better lives than they could be having here. And this could make them say want to go there, particularly considering that for some time we've had a very toxic political space in this country where politicians have, taken to bashing their own country without, say, offering substantive solutions on how as a country we could move forward and build a better society. And I think in trying to figure out how then do we deal with this menace, I think that young people have demonstrated to this effect that they can be masters of their own destinies, and they're not going to be whiners and crying that they are victims of these circumstances. as masters of their destinies. Young people are already stepping forward and telling fellow young people that time has come for us to love our country enough and ensure that we work with the leaders that we have given ourselves to make sure that we hold them, one, accountable, number two, we support them with everything we have that we can support them with so that those leaders we have can be able to deliver for us. Thirdly, it is also to remind young people that their decisions matter, that the moment they choose not to participate in civic and political life of this country, it has a consequence. I must remind you again, in view of that statistics, that by the time we are going into 2022 elections...
2027.
No, 2022 elections.
Okay.
5 million Kenyans did not register to vote. And out of those who registered, again, another 8 million Kenyans stayed away from the vote. It is one of the areas, critical areas that Interparties Youth Forum is working on, that how do we ensure that, number one, we raise up political consciousness, civic awareness, that young people participate. That, number two, we remove structural and institutional barriers that stop young people from participating and therefore heightening their own pessimism. Thank you.
All right, we will sample the feedback here. We have some few minutes left, and then I come back for your final remarks, which will be very brief, and we'll be having your feedback here on the Super Bowl. The hashtag on X is Daybreak. The SMS code is 22422 at Citizen TV Kenya and at Ayub Abdikadir. Babu Michelle K says governments have come up with various strategic plans, initiatives and legislation, so any isn't new. Until the day all this will realize their full implementation is when we, the young people, will believe in them. Otherwise, they are just plans on paper. Team Kenya says the issue of youth at the ballot is utopia world. I was an election overseer in 2022, and indeed youths never vote, especially ladies. The only people you can bank on to win an election are the elderly women and jobless men. They never lie. Next up is Nixon Ndugure says, dear youths, as you continue getting opportunities, especially in leadership, don't repeat the mistakes that you see oldies making. Remember, however beautiful the strategy, you should occasionally look at the results. Gabi Wakasiaka says youths who compromise the majority of the population in this country should start taking matters into their own hands and run for more positions. The future belongs to us. Let's make this Kenya we want, the Kenya we want. That's what he meant. If we take our position seriously, we are the agents of change. Brian Chemo says increased resources can enable the council to implement more youth-centric policies and projects, thereby empowering young people and fostering their participation in national development efforts. Kaka Edu says Kenya youths have been neglected for so long, and the only thing that will make them fail to be part of the change in this country is the implementation of such plan. We would like to see this done. I begin with you first, Mohammed. Your final comments.
In all of our discussions, the most unfortunate part is that last part on how young people are disillusioned with this country. And it's a very unfortunate scenario because the report, I think, says 4 out of 5 Kenyans would ditch the country given the opportunity. I think 4 of those 5 young people would ditch the country primarily because the economy does not work for them. They will be primarily economic migrants were they to move out of this country. So unless we get the economy working for those young people, the economy generating enough job opportunities to consume the people who are coming out of universities and the people who are joining the job market every year, unless the business environment is one that is favorable for them to create businesses and run successful and flourishing businesses, that sentiment would not change. Fortunately, I share a different view. I'm very aspirational and I'm very ambitious and hopeful about this country. And I hope that many young people join me in that crusade. But they'll only join me and the rest of the members of this panel in that crusade if the economy can work for them.
Thank you. Yes, Ivy?
Mine is just maybe a few words, especially still since we're talking about the strategic plan. And I'm going to go deeper just by saying that we need to come together not just come together as personal people, but come together as individuals who are collectively understanding the end goal. And the end goal is to make sure as many young people get the support and get the trajectory and get everything that they need just to be able to achieve their goals in life. And I believe that the National Youth Council, seeing that even as much as they've been able to put out this strategic plan, I believe that they should also they should have a call for organizations to come and join them and partner with them so that they be able to even uphold this strategic plan and to hold it accountable. They should also be able to come up with a data efficient kind of mechanism of understanding how many young people are in the country. As I said, we need to profile our young people, those which are educated, those who are not educated, those who have gone to school, those who have not gone to school, those who are male, those who are female. We need to profile these young people so that we can understand what is the demographic of our young people, because data is the next currency. We need this information, with this data, because this is the same data that is going to be used in election. This is the same data that is going to, continue giving birth. It's the same data that's going to help us and double the population by 2050. So we actually need to get as many organizations. There should be a call for application for as many organizations to the National Youth Council to partner with them so that they can continue to apprehend this strategic plan going forward and it can be held accountable.
Yes, thank you. Yes, Angel.
Thank you, Ayub. I was happy to hear a senior ranking member of UDA saying that the country should go mad.
Yes.
I think Ngetich should now come and join Jubilee Party because I think we are more aligned than where he is now. But Ayub, I'd like to call on the agencies of government, the parliamentarians, to review the National Youth Council. It is really a disservice to see young people yearning for a council that they are not able to take part of. And the National Youth Council is an excellent platform for young people to articulate, to participate, and to even have some of these exchange programs where they can even go abroad and see that whether the grass is actually greener there or not. And because once you go abroad and come back home, you really have a very different outlay of thinking, and I think that's an opportunity. Those are opportunities that can be facilitated through the National Youth Council. And then I'm also calling out the president to really take more interest in the National Youth Council, make the youth at the center of his heart, because during the campaign it seemed like that is what Kenyans elected, but today it is not the case. I urge him to relook and review his strategy of the youth and see how better he can empower the National Youth Council, because it needs him. Young people have also realized that our problems are not about our former colonizers. Our problems are not about the Ukraine and Russian war. Our problems are solely about us. And any success is duly and entirely our personal responsibility.
Yes, Brenda.
My call is to the youth of this country. And as much as you're talking about the government should do this, the government should do that, the youth should also just be active and in their own spaces to make sure that they take up this space, because nobody is going to give us this on a silver platter. We have to work for it. The same way they did work when they were youths, to rise to where they are. We are living in a society where there are not so many glass ceilings to be shattered. We are lucky. Matters of gender equality and all, we are almost at par. So let us not use the tag youth to be some sort of disability. Let us rise to the occasion, take up those spaces. The challenges are there. The fact that there is a government that is showing goodwill should be encouraging enough for us to be there to take up these spaces. Let us participate. When you're called for dialogue, let us be very active. That is the only way to show that we also care about our issues. Let us not just leave it to the government alone. And to the government, of course, let action, implementation, be what they do to the youth. That is the only gift they can give to these people.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yes, Kiprotich.
Thank you very much, Ayub. I think as I finish, let me first of all correct my colleague Angel. I didn't say the country should be mad. I call upon the young people to be mad, the young people of this country. Otherwise, the country is headed in the right direction under the leadership of the President, William Ruto. So I think, lastly, as I finish, on the issue of the youth issues, I'm urging our young people to rise up to the generational cause. Every generation, I believe, must be able to define its cause. And in Kenya, to where we are today, I believe we have had 3 generations. The first generation was pre-independence period. The people who were led by 4 fathers of this nation, Kina Ochieng Onego, Jomo Kenyatta, who answered the generational call about fighting for independence, and they gave us independence. There came the second generation, the fight for multi-party democracy. That was led by the Young Turks, including Orengo, Kitobi Manyara, and the rest. And we had political plurality in this country. This is the third generation, and that is now where we are as a young people of this country. And the only thing, the call we are urged upon to answer to is to be politically conscious in all what is happening in this country. Otherwise, our issues should be discussed in the table where we are not there.
Thank you. Yes, Kidi.
Asante Ayub. Two things have happened in this country in the last 18 months, and young people must take notice that we both missed a bullet as a country and have turned a corner. One, the president has brought down the cost of importation to date. Secondly, the cost of petroleum products has come down. This has had a serious bearing on the livelihoods of young people of this country. And I think that as young people, when we cooperate with the government creatively and intelligently, when we support the government where it requires our support, I think it will embolden the government to make the right calls, to make the right decisions, and to ensure that eventually we can use government as an effective tool of collective social progression. Thank you very much.
Ladies and gentlemen, your time is all appreciated. Many thanks. Mohamed Abdullahi is the East African Community Youth Ambassador to Kenya. Ivy Mushoki is the Global Youth Parliament East Africa representative. Kidi Mwaga, convener, the Interparties Youth Forum, and a lawyer. Kiprotich Ngetich is the United Democratic Alliance Party South Rift Regional Manager. Angel Mbudia is the chairperson of the Jubilee Youth League, fresh from Addis in Ethiopia. And Brenda Ongalo is the Secretary General of the United Green Movement. Your time is all appreciated, ladies and gentlemen. Always lovely to have this discussion around young people and the future of our country. Much appreciated. Thanks for making time for the broadcast. And thanks to you too for watching the broadcast here and waking up with us here on Daybreak. Your time, company is always cherished and appreciated. My colleague Sam will be here by the grace of God on Monday. See you then.